Good morning.
Good morning. We are back with another episode of Triggered AF, the podcast. We are just trucking right along. I'm here for all the episodes. How many episodes is it now?
Over 100
Over
episodes.
100 episodes. Yeah.
That's so wild. Like, do y'all know how difficult it is to stay consistent at something? Like, I don't think people truly understand it. Maybe they do understand. Maybe it's just I'm a little slow. It's very possible. I accept that. But staying consistent with something until you achieve the vision that you have in your head, no matter how challenging, no matter the life changes and switch ups and celebrations even and achievements that you go through, to be able to stay consistent and to be able to stay in the game is the game changer.
Is the game. And you want to know something too? I was thinking this morning when I was getting ready for this, like, you know how people are like, oh, everyone has a podcast. Everyone's doing a podcast now. You want to know something? That may be true, but people need to change that to everyone starts a podcast. Does everyone maintain, sustain, and have longevity in the podcast game? Because some of those big podcasts that you're seeing now be like these multi-million dollar deal podcasts, they've been around. Like, I was watching something and Joe Rogan was doing like a flashback, and he's been at this for over like 10 years or something like that. So it's like, the podcast game is not about who starts, honey. It's about who stays in the game. Okay. I just want to throw that out there.
Yes, and speaking of stay in the game, listen, today's guest, that is literally what we're going to be talking about today with Jackie P. Taylor, right? Like, how do you do
Yes.
this?
Yes. And I'm so excited. She's a global executive and business strategist. We are here to talk about what it is when, as a new entrepreneur, as even an entrepreneur that's been in the game, when you feel burnt out, how do you stay in? How do you really like buckle down? How do you just make sure that you are not giving up right before the big break? Because that's right when we were like, oh no, I'm throwing in the towel. So we just want to welcome Ms. Jackie P. Taylor to the Triggered AF podcast so that she can give us some tips and tools on how to really hang in there and keep pushing forward so that we can be the people that we are trying to be in business. Hi, Jackie.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, listen, this is one of my favorite topics, primarily because to me, it's not about who runs the fastest, because just because you're the fastest in a marathon does not mean you're going to win. It really is about who is able to stick in until the race is completed. Because you can start off the fastest, the best, the biggest, the brightest, but if you do not stay in long enough to reach the finish line or to complete whatever it is that you started, you still don't get to. Yes, you'll learn the lessons because nothing is ever lost. However, you don't get to achieve the pinnacle of what it could have been simply because you couldn't figure out how do I drill in, how do I lock in. And so with this conversation and every single conversation, it's literally the only question that we ask for every single guest, because our guests are so multi-hyphenate. They are incredibly accomplished, as are you. But many times we can get like super caught up in the roles that we play and the responsibilities that we have and the things that we do, that we get real fuzzy and we're no longer clear on the who we are. So outside of like your titles and the things that you do, who is it that you say you are?
I think that is an amazing question. First, I want to thank you guys for having me on the show. I love your energy, so I'm excited to be here. Um, I would say that I am a woman who loves to laugh. I mean, I'm
Ooh.
a simple person when it comes to like the core of who I am. I love to laugh. I love to make the people around me laugh. I'm a joy seeker, and I'm constantly trying to help the people around me find their joy. So we're all on that same energy level at my core.
Ooh, it's the joy seeker for me. Because that's me too. Like, I always tell people, no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of accolades can fill the hole that's missing when you don't connect and lock in to peace and you don't find what makes you intrinsically joyful. And it can't be connected to external things.
Yeah, and I did not always know that. I didn't always realize that that was what was driving me. I just did the things. But once I realized it, probably like my late 30s and beyond, once I realized that everything else that I did that I enjoyed aligned with filling my bucket and being a joy seeker. And to your point, I tell my kids all the time, happiness is an inside job. Don't depend on me. Don't depend on a man. Don't depend on your
Right.
partner. It's an inside job. So if you're mad or you're unhappy, we need to start working inside.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you were talking about like even you wanting to make other people happy. And I feel like a lot of times, many successful entrepreneurs utilize tunnel vision to reach their goals and fulfill their vision. And it usually proves to be effective professionally, but it typically will put a strain on their personal relationship. So it sounds like you found a way to kind of cultivate having the community that you need while also being successful in business. So what are some ways that entrepreneurs, yes, of course, prioritizing joy, which is so important, but how can you prioritize community while establishing and running a business? Because it tends to feel, I hear many people say like it feels lonely, it feels draining, you just feel like nobody understands. But there are people who have clearly been able to bring people with them and cultivate that community even in the midst of entrepreneurship. So do you have any tips on that, like how people can do that well and sustainable, because it's so important.
It is so important. In fact, I have an entire chapter of my book that I dedicate to energy boost. When I talk Give Me a Boost, the guide for the under-resourced entrepreneur's guide for growing and scaling your business, I have a chapter called Energy Boost. Because to your point, Danny, the majority of entrepreneurs, the vast majority, will experience anxiety, depression, isolation. Many of them suffer from ADHD, and a number of entrepreneurship is hard.
I know. We interrupted at the best part, but hear me out.
Dating should not be this hard. Let's be honest. We've all said it at least once that the dating pool has pee in it.
It has to. After dozens of dates, too many failed relationships, engagements, marriages, and even a divorce, we decided it was crucial that we find ways to be better at attracting the partners that we desire. So we did just that, and we created the Dating Well AF course.
It's specifically designed to show women how to date with intention and in alignment with their desired type of lifestyle and experience. The 5-module crash course developed by certified coaches Alicia and Danny provides practical tools to date well and live even better.
So I want you to register now for lifetime access to the Dating Well AF course at datingwellaf.com. You will tap all the way in to learn how to identify those self-sabotaging behaviors, discover new ways to date intentionally, and to nurture that healthy love.
Remember, one of the most important life decisions you will ever make is who you decide to make your partner. Make the choice well and visit datingwellaf.com.
Now, back to the episode.
The thing that we admire about the struggle to become a successful entrepreneur is also the Achilles heel and what makes it so difficult. And so what I do is I'm deliberate about it. So the thing I realized is that I am very rigid when it came to my professional career and work. So we all do it, right? If you have a meeting or a calendar and someone else asks you, you say, I'm sorry, I'm booked at that time. I'm conflicted. How about this time, and this time? Unapologetically. Nobody says, I'm booked at that time at 10 o'clock with so-and-so, and it's because it's real. We don't make excuses. We just say, So I said, what if I apply that to my personal life and what I need to fill my bucket? And when I started doing that, like literally I have on my calendar, in fact, I hope they're not watching this because then they might not respect it the same way, but I have spaces on my calendars that says self-care. It's my reminder. I mark it as private because ain't nobody's business what I'm doing.
Ain't nobody's business. It's not your business.
And so I mark it as self-care, and I respect that time. Unless the sky is falling, I will tell them I am booked. I'm booked at that time. In fact, if somebody else, but I'm double booked. So literally. And so I decide what that time is. It could be meditation. It could be nothing. We underestimate the value of nothing time. I just don't want to do anything.
Don't want to do a thing.
Not a darn thing. And so those are the things that actually make me better at the 10 o'clock meeting, at the 9 o'clock meeting, at the 8 o'clock, whatever because I have committed to myself. So that would be my advice. Treat your personal life and your health the same way you would any other asset in your organization.
Ooh, I love that. When I tell you I love that, because I am a fierce, like Danny laughs at me because I can be so anal in business. It needs to look a certain way. I am fiercely protective of my calendar. If it is not on the calendar, it does not exist. And I am very much so like, I'm not doing that. I will do that. And like you were saying, the doing nothing piece for the last, I think I went to the grocery store and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be beholden to go out to spend time with anybody else for 2 weeks. I just want to commune with myself. So I bought 2 weeks worth of groceries so I don't have to see anybody for like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
except for the people at the yoga studio and the kitchen in my house.
Amen.
That's it. That's it. So for 2 weeks, I literally was like, I don't want no Uber Eats. I want to really nourish my body and bring it back to life and give it some intentional time, energy, effort, because I've been ignoring it for at this point almost 3 months, like going, 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 going. And so, like you were saying, you have to refuel. Like, what does that look like? You that energy boost, because once you get to the point to where you're burnt out, you're dropping all the balls, and some of those balls are glass balls, and sometimes that glass ball is the business, to where you're ready to, like, you know what, I'm done, stick a fork in me, this is finished, I cannot maintain. And that's because you ignored when your body was like, hey, we need something. Hey, can you sit down for a little bit? Hey, excuse me. Like, it keeps raising its hand, begging you to pay attention. And so when that glass ball drops and it is okay, I'm ready to just hang up the towel. It aids to the statistic of, the average, failure rate for the first year in business being 10%. But then that 2 to 5 years going up to a staggering 70%, because it's easy to stick in the game in the beginning. It's when you start getting to that in between part, when things, you get real close to the tree so you can no longer see the forest.
Yeah.
So people anticipate like that immediate success, thinking that, oh, this is how it's going to happen. And then it doesn't. And then, of course, we're humans. So that discouragement sets in. And then that, you know what, I'm done. Let me go ahead and throw this glass ball, not drop it. Let me just throw it because I'm done. So how are you able, because that's a mindset thing. So how are you able to constantly shift your mindset when you are looking to, and you have to navigate like those peaks and valleys that come with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's easy to start. You make a good point. It is easy to start. It is hard to grow and to scale. It is hard to keep going. And you guys talked in the intro around being consistent. So that is definitely a word. Um, there are a few things that I encourage my mentees to do, right? To keep the momentum going. The first thing is, you gave those statistics about success factors for emerging businesses. I like to call them emerging businesses because thoughts are things and words are powerful. And so I don't want to, keep them in that small business box. But for
Yeah.
emerging businesses, there is data to show that 75% of emerging businesses who have a mentor live beyond the 5-year mark, that critical 5-year mark in their organization. So the numbers tell a story. So if 3/4 of emerging businesses will be successful for longevity wise, if you have a mentor, find a mentor. And so to keep in that person or that group of people, because I talk in my book about having like your mastermind circle,
Yeah.
that group of people or that circle of mentorship will help you not only with your business, your operations, and your infrastructure, but it'll help you. That person or entity will help you realize when you need to pull out, when you need to refill, because part of keeping the engine going is keeping the gas tank full. And so that's one suggestion that I would provide. The other suggestion that I would provide that I've learned through my own experience is to embrace stress. I know that's not popular, but
Our faces both was just like, wait, what?
I thought it was like, you guys need to edit that one. Just
No, we're gonna keep it in. We're gonna keep it in.
yes, because embrace stress. When
Okay.
you do high intensity interval training, your heart rate goes up like high, 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 and then it brings it down. It's doing that on purpose, right? For you to get the benefit.
Mm.
If you go to the movies and see a scary movie, you are fearful for a period of time and then it goes down. It's healthy to have peaks and valleys. As long as the stress is not constant, as long as your heart doesn't stay at 170, 185 constantly, as long
Yeah.
as you're not in a constant state of fear, it is healthy to have stress. Your stress level should be the odometer for you that you are on your hustle and on your game and pushing towards moving your business. It just shouldn't be constant. So as
Yeah.
long as you embrace the highs and the lows as part of that journey, I actually think it's healthy. Disappointment comes from having not lack of parity with expectations and reality. So if your expectations are that I'm going to have peaks and valleys and it may be stressful, but then it's going to go down, then you won't be disappointed, right? Because there's parity between what's really happening and what you expected.
Yeah, and it's so important. I like the concept of embracing stress, but even just learning to manage the stress in those moments. Like oftentimes it's like, oh, I'm just stressed, and there's nothing anyone does about it. You just sit in that stress for a month or two, and you're just stressed. And it's just like, but there are ways to kind of dump a little bit of that stress out of the body through yoga, through dance, through meditation, through going out with your friends, through travel. Like there's so many ways that people just feel like, oh, I just have to sit in this and that just has to be it. It is definitely important to acknowledge and understand that stress is going to happen. There's no way to avoid it.
You start stressing out because you're stressed out.
Exactly. The stress causes the stress. It's important to find ways to manage the stress because it's going to happen. And then sometimes you're trying so hard to avoid the stress that you're not getting anything done. And now
Right.
you're stressed out because you're not where you want to be. Like it's going to happen. Okay.
Right. So now, do you guys embrace solo vacations? So I'm a big solocationer.
Ooh, yes. I've been on a couple and I think it's amazing. Girl,
Ah,
yeah.
So I have 5 children. Okay, I'm
Oh,
just gonna put that out
wow. Amazing. Okay.
there.
5 years.
And so I'm sharing that as the justification for the solocation because
Listen,
we'll do.
oh, you don't even have to say anything else. Like we completely understand.
We do vacations, we do work trips, right? And we don't think twice when we're traveling alone for work all over the world, right? And
Mm.
so I realized I was like, wait, I'm in the middle of Germany, like, and this is for work and I'm by myself. Why wouldn't I be okay traveling? So anyway, on a regular basis, I do my family activities and vacations. I'll do the vacations from every now and again, but I prioritize my solo locations.
mm.
And there was a period of time that I realized on the first one that I went on, I said, I just went 24 hours and have not said a word to anybody. 24 hours. Like I haven't spoken, like other than like, the nod when you see your people on the beach and you're
Mhm.
just to acknowledge. But other than that, and there was so much joy, value. And when I came back, even though everybody's like, how could you leave? How could you do that? When I came back, I was a better person. I was a better professional. I was a better mother. I was a better sister, a better everything. So I commit to doing that. So Danny, when you talk about yoga and meditation, it's okay to solocation.
Yeah.
No location.
It is. It's necessary probably for so many people. And often, most of the times, it's the fear of, oh, I'm by myself. And you don't want to sit with yourself because now you have to deal with stuff when you sit with yourself. But some of the better you know yourself is the easier it is to feel like, okay, when my stress is at a 4 or a 5, what can I do to prevent it from getting to a 10? Right. It's just like, how do I have more peaks and valleys in my stress as opposed to chronic stress that's just sitting there all the time? And that's just where I'm cruising on cruise control with stress. Like that's where cancer and diabetes and diseases start to come up in your body because you have chronic stress. So I love making that point about the difference in stress that could be good for the body and stress that is detrimental because you don't know how to manage it and bring it back down when you need to.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
would say a thing too, and Danny, you just said something about knowing when you're on a 4 versus on a 10. So I operate as a transformation coach as well. And whenever I'm coaching executives, the main thing I always start with is let's get clear on your leader alarms. I call them leader alarms, where you have yellow, you have orange, and you have red. When you're on yellow, what is your default? What is happening in your universe? How do you know that, okay, you're now, it's starting to inch up a little bit, right? On that EKG. And then what does orange look like? What is happening? What is the experience in your body? Who is it that you can trust that you have set up to, you can send a certain emoji, whether it's the swirly, whether it's the head going kaboom, whatever it is, with those leader alarms, getting super clear on what is the experience in your body, what is happening around you, and what are the ramifications of what's happening when you're on certain colors, then identify what do I need to bring me back down.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
think it's also an example of how the lessons that you learn in the workplace, the things that you learn, they are directly applicable to your personal life.
Yeah.
Um, Just yesterday, I had the opportunity to interview with Dr. Bernice King, the King Center, who has kind of pushed forth for corporations a nonviolence 365 workplace edition. And one component of that nonviolence 365 is starting with yourself, and a lot of elements of self-reflection. And I think it speaks to what you were saying, being reflective and introspective on what your triggers are, on what your energizers are, is going to be really key to you having good work relationships, having good personal relationships, and being able to work on a team and get things done. So it's all part and parcel to being a successful entrepreneur, but a good person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that we often talk about is people who have like this idea that once they get to something, then this and this and this will happen. I'll be less stressed. I'll be happy once I reach this goal, once I hit this $1 million mark, once I have this position. And they forget that the destination is going to feel however the journey did, right? You have people who are highly successful, but then they get to where they want to get and they're miserable. They start to abuse substances. They start to have a lot of internal issues because they weren't resolving things while the journey was happening. And for under-resourced business owners, the process is obviously grueling, especially when you don't have a blueprint, you don't have a great great grandfather that already laid it out for you. You know what I mean? Like, especially with certain communities, a lot of this is so new. So what are some tips that can be used to kind of better leverage opportunities that are disguised as problems? Like, how can people start to reframe some of those issues that they think they're having and kind of look at them as ways to grow and to scale and to be better? I love emerging business owners.
So emerging business owners have a lot of tools at their disposal and available to them. The unfortunate thing is we don't always have the exposure to where those nuggets are. It's like
Yeah.
a scavenger hunt, right? Trying to find the opportunities. And to your point, Black, Latino, women-owned businesses, even veteran entrepreneurs, Native American entrepreneurs have been historically under-resourced, have historically not had multiple generations of knowledge, of hard knocks, of insights, a rich uncle that they can use as an accelerator to help them move their businesses forward. So part of what I provide in the book is I break down, different elements of your internal operations that, you need to look at. And I share some of the insights that I've learned in 20 plus years, providing advisory services for Fortune 500 executives, for mayors, for governors, in public and private sector. I realized that a lot of those strategic insights were applicable to these emerging businesses. I just needed to break it down in a way that was super understandable, brass tacks, because our people are very knowledgeable at how to run their business. They either have a license in a certain discipline or they've been doing it for a while. They didn't necessarily get an MBA, right, in business administration. And so what I try to provide in the book are those elements of how to run a business and the operations, how to leverage emerging technologies to support your operations, but also to change how you interface with your customers. What's your customer experience? So we grow up learning you make sales, you make money, and then you grow your business. I talk about how to create a customer experience because the time it takes to find a customer exceeds the time it will take to keep a customer. So I talk about how to cater to that customer experience. I talk about revenue not being the only thing. Just making more money is not going to help you grow and scale your business. You also need to do more with less so that you get to a point where you say, what got me from 100,000 to 1 million is not what's going to get me from 10 or 50 million to 100 million. And so those are the types of concepts that I try to share in the book. I also provide literally, because of how I work, I provide notes sections in the book. So I provide prompting questions. I don't only like make it an academic, read, but you learn something. I provide prompting questions, and then there are notes. I want everybody's Give Me a Boost book to look like a well-worn Bible
Yes.
by the time you're done.
Yes, I say that all the time. I always tell, especially to my daughter, yes, to those I coach, but especially to my daughter, because I want to make sure that, the one thing that we're all going to do is die. And people are like, oh my God, that's so morbid. And it's like, first of all, let's just keep it a buck. It's literally the only thing we all have to do. And so I want to be sure that I'm leaving her with the best of me. So I tell her consistently, hey, when you learn something, implement immediately. Don't read something, or you go and you study or you learn something off of YouTube and you're like, oh, that was so cute. When I get a chance, I'm gonna do that thing. And it's like, before you know it, we are a year from now and you have not done the thing at all. Because unless you make it a priority, it will not be a priority. It will not get done unless it's prioritized.
Mhm.
So each time after she learns, like she's learning video editing and production, because I told her, I was like, hey, listen, there are so many opportunities and ways in which you can make money right now today that does not involve me coming out of my account to provide it for you. Learn all the things, do all the things. I want you to be the person who just picks up something, tries it, likes it, keeps going, picks up something, tries it, hates it, sends it off to the side, and you try something else. I want you to try. I don't
Figure
care.
out your system now while she has you as her insurance policy. That's what I, yeah.
Whole insurance policy. Try all the things. You can be as flighty as you want to be. This is the time.
Love it.
Learn as soon as you learn it, implement it. So I love the fact that in your book you have to take some notes, write it down, ideate, take what you just the inspired, inspired actions based off of what you've read. But for most people, it's read it, ingest it. Oh, that made me feel real nice and fuzzy, and then they go lay down. What is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, and often, and a lot of times it's you're using you're calling it, or your lack of knowledge, or you don't know, and you just keep telling yourself how much you don't know, so then you don't try to go find out. Like,
Mhm.
all this information nowadays is so readily available at our fingertips right here, right now. And that's why it is important for that community to curate, like you said, like having those masterminds and having people around you that can give you resourceful information, right, that you can use to do the things. Because everybody, I feel like, has keys for you. Like, people that come into your life, it may not be like the best thing or the biggest thing, or they may not have to be able to bring you to $100 million, but they may have a little key that opens up a little door that is like, okay, that makes sense. That's one step in the right direction. Like, utilizing your resources and the people in your life to help you kind of figure things out along the way, as opposed to just deciding that you don't know, and really unconsciously you don't want to know, because
Right.
of the fear and the things that will come with you now knowing better. You got to do better,
Right.
right?
Now you got to keep it moving. And I think choosing those people that are around you helps with that consistency. You guys are 100 plus episodes, but you have each other.
Yeah.
And when you're talking, even personally, you probably talk about the podcast and your guests, and oh, that would be a good topic, even if you're on
Yeah.
your downtime. And so when you start to create that circle, we are all experts or provide value in different areas, but nobody is a Jackie of all trades, right? And so if you create your mastermind circle, you have your person who's really good with finance, you have your other person who's super with editing and creative. You've got, so if you surround yourself with these people, then that helps you with consistency. It gives you insights. It's training you as a CEO and a founder, because as a founder, you need to know what you don't know and bring that expertise around you when you're recruiting and you're creating your talent infrastructure. And so I think it's so important to just make sure that your circle is that ocean, right? That's going to keep you moving and driving you and keeping you focused and keeping your eyes on the prize.
Yeah, I always say you want to hire for your weaknesses. And that's what you say in business, but in life for me is I want to fill my tribe with folks who are better than me in all the areas that I'm not. So in the areas I'm not good in, just like in business, I hire for my weaknesses. I hire for the things that I'm not so good at. In my life, I ensure that I fill my circle with folks who are really, really good at things that I'm just not so great at.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Danny, she's so intentional about ensuring that her child eats and the types of food that she eats. And so I have her and like two other friends who they are so intentional about it. It has helped me to completely transform how I'm eating, what I'm eating.
So no chicken nuggets and French fries.
No, not
Absolutely
for
not.
me.
Unless I make them myself, like, unless I, make the French fries from the potatoes.
Wait, you're raising the chicken? Because I have friends who have farms, so in
Oh,
Georgia.
it's in the it's somewhere out there. Like, that is an ultimate goal, is to grow my own food. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, like I'm signing up for this gardening class because for me it matters that I am starting in the dirt. For what am I putting in my body? And I never ever thought I would be this girl. Like, I grew up on Wendy's and Mickey D's. Like,
I admire you guys. So that's a benefit of having the sandwich generation, because when my dad passed, I moved my mom in with me. And so she grew up in North Carolina on the farm. So we do have veggies in the back. I bought the seeds. I went to Lowe's. I bought all the things. But as far as the hands in the dirt thing, that's on her because there are bugs in there.
Yep, I mean, I'm gonna hire like a farmhand, and someone's gonna have to do all the work. But I want to be like Oprah. You know what?
Not outsourcing already.
Okay, now I have a whole plan, but like I just have this vision where Oprah like is always showing us her harvest, and it's like I know Oprah is not in the grass.
But she's showing the harvest.
That's what I want to show. That's what I want. I want you to see my tomatoes, see my avocados. Supposedly Oprah doesn't buy avocados ever anywhere. She travels and brings avocados because she feels avocados are too expensive, okay, to buy. So she travels with her own. That's where I'm trying to be. I'm trying to just have my little fruits and veggies and have them grown. But no, it is. I love the stress, like stressing the point of having the people around you that can help you with the resources and curating that. And it's not about being opportunistic or using people either. That used to be how I feel. I used to be like, well, I don't want to just be their friend or get to know them because of this and that. But Alicia actually taught me that as long as it's an exchange and the intentions are pure and you're also providing value where you're not just taking, it'll help you feel more confident in curating those relationships because you realize like, hey, it's not that you're less than and there's so much more and you don't have anything to offer. No, see what you can offer and see what you can bring to the table and see how you guys can create maybe a barter system. And then maybe that will develop into a deeper friendship. But, not feeling like everything is, we have this mentality of, oh, you're using people if you are being strategic with how you implement them into your life, when no, it should be an exchange for everybody to benefit in some way.
And if you go into the conversation or the relationship, with that synergy in mind, then I think that I have a section of the book where I talk about strategic alliances. We don't talk about that a lot when it comes to growing and scaling your business. So I provide, the readers, to your point, with like the 4 C's, right? So there are 4 ways to expand your business. There's corporate clients, there are consumers, individual consumers, people walking in and out. There are contracts, like government contracts, but then collaborations and strategic partnerships. And so a strategic partnership can be a major organization that you're working with an event planner to do makeup services because you're going to get those referrals. Or it could be what you were talking about, Alicia and Danny, around, is there somebody in your life who you have that synergy with? The only thing I would add to that is some people actually get benefit from helping others. And so I like to tell, I am some people. So
me too.
That's how I deal with my stress. I've learned, and I think it's healthy. Some people will come and say, well, that is a deflection mechanism. That's not really coping. I'm like, no, you mind your coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
Fine. I like to tell people that I get high. Full stop. Let me finish.
You saw, I was like, okay.
You know what? You guys did not react. So triggered is a judgment-free zone. I respect.
Oh, absolutely. We're like, okay.
But when I talk about getting high, I talk about the helper's high. So there is an actual documented thing called the helper's high, where there were studies that show that when you actually help other people, there are chemicals that are released in your brain and in your body that create that joy that I seek, that create that joy and actually give you the equivalent of a high. And I realized that after I lived it, and it sort of just validated, the feeling and made me feel less guilty about helping people. It made me feel like, okay, so this is actually a feeling that is activated in my body that I'm seeking when I help people. And when I do my mentorship for small businesses, when I meet people and I'm automatically connecting and spending my weekend time doing it, it feels good. And that stuff is not a burden. When people take advantage, that high goes away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you're helping from a place where you feel forced or obligated, then it just it's not high no more. Now it just feels like a drain.
Now it's a downer.
Now I'm not enjoying it. Now I'm hungover. And it's so, I love that helper's high because it's important to to realize that, hey, this is something that makes me feel good, even though it's something that people will be like, oh, you can't help everybody, you can't da da da. It's just like, yeah, but that's a part of who I am. Like, what if that's just who you are, and that's something that brings you joy? Like, I grew up watching, like, on Christmas morning, we would go, like, I grew up in church and my family owned the church. So we would go every Christmas and Thanksgiving and like feed the homeless and do all these things. And it's just like helping is just such a part of my, I don't
We did
like,
that. We did
well,
blessing bags. I did that.
yeah, yeah. It's just like when that's just kind of what you see. And I was like, my mom, I'm Jamaican, and we're like very new immigrants to this country. Like, I was born in Jamaica as well. My mom's house was the house that people came to when they came to America. My aunt's house was the house. Like, we have people sleeping under our beds. Like, that's just the world I grew up in. So helping, it doesn't feel so like to me, right? It makes me feel good. It's like I want to help. I want to do these things. So I like that. Like, keeping in mind, like tapping into what you said earlier, like when you know who you are and you're aware, then it's easier for you to make decisions around what makes you feel good and what can help you move forward. So that's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And when you were talking, I was getting chills because I hadn't heard of the Helper's High, but my mom would always tell me, because see, we were the family who was receiving those bags that y'all was giving. So thank y'all. Y'all kept us fed as a child. So thank y'all for your service. But she would always say, if you're really feeling down, you want to get out of your own funk, help somebody out of theirs.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking, I got chills when you were talking about the Helper's High and how it makes you feel good. I was planning my suicide for January 2013. Like, for me, I was done with life. Like, I was over it. I was, married to an abuser. I felt like I had nothing to offer my child, that I was worth more to her dead than alive. So I knew that, I had a $500,000, life insurance policy. And I knew that, of course, if you died by suicide, you're not gonna get the money. And so I had totaled, at that point, 6 or 7 cars. And so I was like, okay, if I die in a car accident, nobody will question it. So I had planned to drive my car off of the express lane going from Fort Lauderdale to Miami. There's a huge like express. It's really, really high and it curves, and I drive an SUV. And so I knew that if I sped up and hit the wall real quick, I would definitely flip over, because SUVs flip. That's just a thing. And so what I decided to do was to go home to spend some really good time with my mom in December 2012, because my plan was January, I'm out of here. Like, it's over for me. I'm done. It is finished. When I went to go spend time with her, so she'd have really, really good memories of me, because I know how hard she took it when my brother had passed. So I went home and I'm thinking, oh, we finna have a good time. So I was on all the things that she loves that I hated. I went to church every night, which for me was such a challenge. But on one of the nights that I went to church, I met a girl named Naomi. And Naomi looked like death and I felt like death. But on the outside, it looked great. My ex-husband was fine as ever. I had an amazingly brilliant little girl, 3 promotions in 1 year, a brand new house built from the ground up, luxury vehicle driving, like I'm fine as ever too. So I just looked great on the outside, but she looked like death. So she looked how I felt, and something in me was like, let me ask her, can I help her? I asked around a couple of people, like, well, who is she? What does she do? Da, 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 da. And after the church service one night, I was like, hey, can I help you? And she was like, well, what you want? And I was like, baby girl, if I was going to date women, you wouldn't be my pick, but can I help you? And in helping her, it kind of ignited something in me almost instantly. Like, in working with her, I created a nonprofit. We were partnered with UPS, Miami Marlins, City of Miami Gardens, like all in a year's time, literally, because I asked her, can I help you? And the desperation that I felt with wanting to escape this life, it was kind of like, and I don't like to say things happen instantly, but it literally was like an instant click, like a, oh no, helping her, literally, it connected me with purpose and helped to refill a cup that I didn't even realize was empty. And so that helping and knowing who you are, it can save your life, because it literally saved mine.
Wow, that's a powerful story. But as you're talking, I just 100% relate. And it doesn't have to make sense to everybody else on the outside.
Yeah.
So if
Right.
someone did know what pain you were in, like stepping back and seeing that, would it make sense to them? They would say, but she's in all this pain, but yet she's starting a nonprofit. She's helping this woman. And I know when I deal with challenges with my children who suffer from mental health, my youngest kids suffer from mental health challenges. If someone stepped back and looked at my day, they would say, well, how is it that you can go through that and then still go to that event or still help that person and spend an hour with them to help them with their business? But it doesn't have to make sense to other people. It just has to make sense to you, because that's how we have decided that we're going to get through, right, our days, our week, and that patch in our life. So thank you for being vulnerable and even sharing that story. That was powerful.
Yeah, it's important that we talk about the things that make us uncomfortable, especially too, striking gold, like hitting success and actually making it can sometimes feel more uncomfortable than what the drought felt like, because the drought, it's yes, it's uncomfortable too, but it's the devil versus the devil you don't know. And so people will like work so hard for the success, like I was working real hard for the success. And then when you finally get it, it can feel, or you can feel as if you're like not deserving of it, or you're not worthy of it. And that's when that imposter syndrome sometimes creeps in, or that feeling of worthlessness. So like, what are some ways that business owners, and honestly even folks who work in corporate America, who are, I hate to say climbing the ladder, but who are excelling in their careers and who are expanding and growing, but also struggle a bit, how can they lean into their sense of worthiness?
Yeah, and to your point, I think the answer I'm about to give you is for entrepreneurs, but it's for intrapreneurs. So if you have that same entrepreneurial grit, but you're working with an employer, it works for you. Or if you're just a strong professional looking to increase your personal and professional productivity, so it still applies. I would say we all labor laser focus on this concept of the destination. I like to say set a goal, and that goals are movable, right? They're movable. Not the date for that particular goal, but your goal will change. It will morph. Because if you just view it as a destination, then you see an end, and then what? Right? So that is disheartening and very jarring in and of itself. But if you set a goal, then you can actually enjoy the journey and appreciate getting to that goal. And when you're almost at that goal, you can set another goal. And so that way you're appreciating building the muscle of goal setting and achievement, goal setting and achievement. There are actually studies to show how to beat procrastination and how to keep your momentum going is you set small goals. So if you have a list of 10 things, find the 3 or 4 things that you can get done faster, because the body will process that accomplishment and fuel you towards doing the other thing. So don't do the big thing first, because that's disheartening. Do the
Yep.
little things so that you have. So imagine if you looked at your professional achievements the same way, and you say, my goal is to get this promotion. My goal is to, because I had that goal when I was going to make $100,000. Like, it's crazy how, your mind changes, right? From time to time. If that's your goal, set many goals that your milestones that you'll have to get to that. And then you enjoy the freaking journey.
Yeah.
Enjoy. I have memories. How many times do people ask me, what would you tell your younger self? I would tell my younger self to enjoy the journey. What would you have done then? I would have lived in the moment. And so living in the moment and enjoying that time, man, when you finally mature to the point where you're able to do that and to sit in that and not just contemplate the next shoe that's going to drop, it's just a whole other revelation. It's an accomplishment and success in and of itself.
Yeah, you're talking about procrastination and those like doing those little things. It's the same, it's literally how you change habits. Like in my coaching practice, that's probably like my biggest like goal is to help people kind of change their habits, because we don't realize that your habits determine your lifestyle. So when you are doing things and you're trying to make a change and you want to do a big overhaul, like, oh, I want to just stop eating carbs, or I want to just work out every day, or I want, and you make these like lofty goals and they just like, your body is like, what? Absolutely not. Your body's like, no, get somebody else to do it, because I'm not doing all that. Like that is, you literally send your body into a space where it feels like it needs to protect you, because you're trying to do something that it feels like you're going to die. Like it's literally how your body registers newness. Like, oh my gosh, like you're trying to kill me right now.
Trying to kill me.
And convince you of all the ways you cannot do any of those things that you say that you're going to do. And then you start and then you stop. And then your confidence wavers because you can't seem to stay consistent. And then you start to convince yourself that that's who you really are. And it's just like a vicious cycle. So yes, I love the note about like just doing the little thing. Like maybe today you're not going to like do everything on your to-do list, but be happy if you checked off 3 things off your to-do list. And that's a reminder that, hey, I can do 3 more things tomorrow and 3 more things the day after that. And then your habits just start to shift into who you actually are. And then you can become that person you've always wanted to be. But it's really, really hard when you feel like today you're going to show up as her. That's just it moving forward. And then you regress and you don't know why. And then you know, like I said, it comes into that vicious cycle where you start to feel defeated. And once you start to feel defeated, like, because that's what procrastination starts to lead to, is that sense of defeat. Once you get into that realm, it's so hard to get out. So please, please just start small, do 1 or 2 things a day. Like, there's this doctor that I love, Dr. Chatterjee. He has a podcast where he talks a lot about habits. I think he has a book about habits too. And he was just like, sometimes incorporate your new habit into your old habits, right? Mm-hmm. So like when he's making his coffee, he'll do 10 push-ups. The time is going to be spent anyway. So he's not trying to create a new space for doing his 10 push-ups, but he takes 5 minutes a day to move his body, and it's while his coffee is being brewed and made. So he's just like, instead of sitting there scrolling on my phone, instead of, you know, checking that email, he just incorporates whatever this new thing he wants to do into an old thing so that the body doesn't resist it as much. So it's
I just call it that. So when I make my coffee, I want to smell the beans being roasted and the whole, it's like a whole coffee experience. But I love that advice because I didn't see it as incorporating a new thing into an old thing. I saw it as like distract myself until it becomes a habit. So for example, I have elliptical, which listen, whatever works. But I have elliptical and I'm like, okay, I really like watching, it's a guilty pleasure, like this particular Tyler Perry show. So when this show, when Sisters is on, I'll get on the elliptical because then I'm so into Sisters that I don't realize
the time flies.
30 minutes. And so, I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah, it definitely changes the game because, like, I'm telling you, newness. Once you say new to the body, it's not going to incorporate.
Right. But I do have to keep the goal in front of me, and so I love the idea of not, you know, overwhelming yourself with newness. But I do need to keep the goal in front of me, like in my mind, in my mind's eye. But the pressure, to your point, was too much, so I eliminated the pressure. I was always a New Year's resolution person. New Year started, New Year's resolutions. I was like a New Year, but there was so much pressure because everybody was doing it. Everybody was tracking it, following it, judging. So what I started to do 2 years ago is my birthday became my New Year. And so I would set goals for myself in May around, nobody else was doing it.
Wait, May what?
May 15th.
I'm May 16th. Oh, we got to be friends now.
My best friend's birthday is May 16th. My childhood best friend is May 16th. So yes, Taurus. So you also know the other struggles of the stubbornness. I mean, you know, frame everything. So yeah, I would set it for my birthday, and then I would create a vision board, and I keep my vision boards. And so when I look back at my old vision boards, I may not have accomplished those things in that year, but I accomplished them, you know, maybe in a couple years. And I always tell myself, my time's not God's time. God has a different, you know, he doesn't go on a yeah. So I love that idea, but you know, sometimes it's good to just have that vision and it's subconscious. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, if you just make it top of mind, focus on what you can accomplish each day, eventually the Lord and the universe will create the circumstances to help you get there.
They'll conspire with you to make those things happen. Yeah. And then
all God's people say, come on, trigger this. Hey. Okay.
Amen. Hey.
So just to kind of close out my last question, we've been talking a lot about emerging entrepreneurs, but there are some people that have stayed in the game, right? They've been doing this for a long time, but then the burnout feeling comes, right? Where you're just like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I've done it all. I'm feeling drained. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I do want to scale, but I don't even know what that looks like. Like, when that success comes and there becomes all these moving parts, you tend to want to just kind of retreat, right? Like it gets scary, it gets burnt out. And then oftentimes entrepreneurs are afraid to pivot because they feel like they're quitting or they're giving up. What are some tips or what advice do you have for people who may be super successful in business, but now maybe want to explore something else, but feel a lot of resistance or fear because that pivot can feel like quitting sometimes? Because we're told, like, you got to never give up, you got to keep pushing, you got to keep going, no matter how miserable you are. And it's like sometimes, no, maybe you do need to pivot and go be that artist, go write that book, go do that other thing that you could be successful in, So what would you say to people who are in that space where they have accomplished the things, but now they're ready to pivot, but they don't want to feel like they're quitting?
Yeah. So take a break is my first piece of advice.
Yeah.
Embrace the break, take a break, step back, and figure out a way to take the break, because I know it's easier said than done. When you've got business operations going, you've got family, it's not always easy to take a break. I actually created a nonprofit called Real Respite because I realized that people who needed respite, either from family pressures or, to your point, entrepreneurial pressures, didn't always have the resources or availability out there to do it, whether it was childcare, elder care, or otherwise, or the funds. And so I would encourage you to take a break, because entrepreneurs are visionaries. And if God has planted a vision for an organization, a business, some sort of impact for you, He will also make a way for you to execute on that. But you have to be silent. You have to be quiet and quiet your mind so you can even hear it. So that's the first step I would say, take a break. And then everything that you were just sharing that many entrepreneurs experience around, well, what if I want to pivot? What if I want to do something different? Is really rooted in the perception that you believe others will have of you if you do it. Right?
Yep.
So you're going to be concerned. What will people say? I mean, nobody wants to say, what are people going to say if I stop? What are people going to say if I get a job? What are people going to say? And so I think part of that taking a break is getting comfortable enough in your own skin to chart the path and make the decision that you need to make. My device that I use to kind of help me do that when I do feel imposter syndrome or like the judgment is overwhelming, is I imagine that I'm writing a book. I imagine that I'm already at that endpoint of that decision. And I
Mm.
imagine I'm talking to Danny and Alicia, and they're asking me, Jackie, how did you get the business to $100 million? And I'm telling them the story. Well, in 2023, I was at an impasse and I took a break, and I was really embarrassed, but I actually had to go get a job. And after when I got that job, I worked my business. So you see what I'm doing? Like I tell
Yeah.
myself the story because I'm still going to do X, but I'm showing that it is just a part of the bigger journey and the story and a part of my, my testimony. And I do that. I know I just went through the whole thing, but I do that a lot to just kind of help me get to an endpoint. And you see how it like contextualizes the experience differently as opposed to right now I failed.
Yeah. It's how you frame it, right? It's like how you allow your mind's eye to see what's happening. And I love that piece about like just kind of envisioning what the result already looks like.
Yeah.
That is actually like a psychological tool to even deal with anxiety. I had gotten into a car accident, and one of the things that I learned in therapy, because I started having like debilitating anxiety when I needed to drive, because I got hit on the highway by one car, I spun around and got hit by another car. I
Wow.
was over. I was done. I was like, oh, the driving thing is just not for me. I need to hurry up and get me a chauffeur because this is not life. But obviously, you have to drive. So one of the things that I was taught was always imagine yourself getting to your destination. Imagine yourself pulling up to where you're supposed to go, getting out of the car, walking into the building, so that you can kind of tell your mind and your body that you're safe, that you're okay, and that this is what the outcome will be. Because your mind will start to tell yourself all sorts of stories that are just, first of all, just not true, right? And learning to become an observer of your thoughts as opposed to like a victim of your thoughts.
Mhm. But do you know there's a I have to figure out what the formal name is. But part of what guided me to what you just shared is I was watching something about actors and when they're like doing their character preparation, and someone shared that the brain actually doesn't know the difference between acting and reality.
No,
So
I no difference.
Yeah. So when they do these
No
scenes
clue.
that are like, they can literally suffer from, if they do an army scene, they can suffer from PTSD
Yep.
because the
Yes.
brain did not. So flip that upside down. And I'm like, okay, so I am this rich itch and I am success. I'm just being facetious, but
Yeah,
No,
but
you're not being facetious. Yes, you are. Yes, you are rich, wealthy,
thank
healthy, all
you.
the
And
things.
abundance and money flows to me easily, and all the business acumen. And so yes, and so that is why I embrace that. Like I
Mhm.
literally will vision, and you have to build that muscle. You have to practice it. When I bought my, it wasn't my first house, my second house that was in a neighborhood in New Jersey that I could not afford in my mind at the time, you know, that was my old mindset. I actually embraced the thoughts are things mentality. And I took my daughter to daycare in that neighborhood. People were like, why are you taking? Because I want to feel what it feels like to
Yep.
drive to work from that daycare because that's where I'm going to have her. When I went food shopping, I went to the grocery store in that neighborhood.
Yep.
I sure do. I still have that house. I never sold it when I moved to Georgia because that was my manifestation house. That is my manifestation house. And so
Mhm.
I'm not only a client, I'm the president. I am a firm believer, right? That
Mhm.
manifestation and thoughts are things, and you have to vision where you're looking to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter was actually the first person who taught me how to do that. When I left everything, sold my house in Florida, moved to New York. Unfortunately, we instantly became homeless, had a whole bunch of things to happen. So I was homeschooling her because I was terrified of the New York public school system, and I couldn't afford in my mind private school, which is what I wanted her to be
Mhm.
because that's what she was when we were in Florida. And so my good sis told me, mind you, she's always been like, she's like, she does not like being homeschooled. She doesn't like being with me and her aunt all day. She wants to be around other kids. So every day for a couple of months, she would get dressed, put her backpack on her back, go to the door and be like, okay, bye, mommy. I'll see you later. I'm going to school now. Mind you, she started this in like September, October. You technically weren't supposed to be able to start at any private school until the next year in August. She literally kept saying, I said, like, well, let me go check out a school. So I went to check out a school that had, I mean, phenomenal reviews, all the things. And so we go, we take her, they, do their little testing, talk to her, whatever. And they're like, normally we would make you guys wait until August. They're like, but she seems so ready and like she really wants to come now. So if it's okay with you, we can go ahead and get her started. I think it was like February or March. Who finna let somebody start that far into the school year? This little girl manifested her way into school. And then on the first day of school, she was like, bye, mommy, I'm headed to school. Don't miss me too much. And we were actually taking her to school.
Wow.
And so watching her, and she's done it multiple times. She told me we were going to Egypt, and I had no intention. It was nowhere on my radar. And so I would watch her decide something was a thing and it will materialize in her hand because in her mind, it already was a thing. And so I was like, well, shoot, if you got this type of faith, it must have came from somewhere. So I'm just going to say it came from me. And I
I'm gonna
was
just tap on in. I'm gonna just tap into that.
You gave him a mustard seed. What did they say? And the child shall lead. She is leading.
it's what you're saying is so true and so powerful. Like once you make a decision, literally nothing but death can keep you from it. And sometimes death ushers it in because with MLK, I'm pretty sure they thought that because the dreamer was dead, so it's the dream. And what happened is him transitioning literally helped to bring about a lot of the change that he was working towards and for. And having that type of a formidable spirit, it is really, really difficult to lose when you refuse to give up. So this conversation around staying in the game, I mean, I have so loved it. And yes, I peeped, but you said you in Georgia. I am too. So hey, we're gonna have to go ahead. I don't know where in Georgia, we can figure it out. We could talk offline about that one.
Exactly.
But no, this conversation, oh my goodness, it has just filled my cup so much, and it's good AM.
Yes,
Y'all.
I love to hear more holistic conversations around entrepreneurship as opposed to just like the machine part of entrepreneurship. Like I think we kind of have a lot of that part figured out. We're now trying to seek joy and find joy and enjoy that process a little bit more so that we can stay in the game for real.
Right.
So thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing everything with us and dropping all those tips and tools. But we definitely want to make sure that our audience can stay connected with you. They can keep up with you. They can purchase your book. So give us all the deeds. Where can we stay connected? Where can we get the book? All the good things.
Sure. Yes, a good time was had. Absolutely. So I appreciate you ladies having me on. So folks can go to JackiePTaylor.com. That's JackieP Taylor.com. And also my handle on social, both from a LinkedIn perspective, Instagram, TikTok, is actually at Jackie P. Taylor. So as long as you put that P initial in the middle, you can find me and also get the book.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. You can stay connected with me everywhere at Alicia Reese. Y'all know my mama got excited. It is spelled Alechia, last name Reese, Reese. Danny?
You can stay connected with me at the Danny Bordeaux. Bordeaux is BOURDEAU. You can stay connected with Triggered at Triggered AFPC on Instagram. You can go to Triggered AF Podcast on Facebook. You can also go to triggeredafpodcast.com. And of course, for our latest and greatest events and all the things we have coming up, you can go to triggeredafevents.com as well, because we have some good stuff in the works for you to piggyback off of the Evolve experience. So we definitely want to make sure that we're always staying connected with you guys, our Trigger Happy fam. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Share this with your favorite entrepreneur besties. Share it with somebody who is an emerging entrepreneur. That's a new, like, I'm running with that. I'll give you your credit, Jackie, but I'm running with that. Your emerging entrepreneur friends that are just needing that extra boost. This is the episode for them. Share with them. Share with people who are really on a journey trying to stay in the game. Thank you guys so much for listening. See you next time.
Bye.